Welcome to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to give you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
Before we get started, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Natural Stacks, maker of natural and proven formulas that help you alter your mood, your state of conscious, your focus, your relaxation, and much, much more. Natural Stacks has an entire line of products from serotonin brain food, acetylcholine brain food, dopamine brain food, GABA brain food, and of course, their popular NeuroFuel and MagTech products, all which are designed to help you improve your brain chemistry naturally and safely. Now, personally, I love their products and I use them pretty frequently. So I reached out to their founder, a past podcast guest, and we together came up with an awesome deal. You can get 15% off the entire lineup of Natural Stacks products by going to naturalstacks.com/superhuman. Once again, that's naturalstacks.com/superhuman. Greetings, Super Friends, and welcome to this week's episode where I don't actually have a review to read out on the air. So if you haven't left a review yet, please go ahead and do so, and I will embarrassingly mispronounce your name on the air. It's fun for everyone. I highly recommend it. On to today's episode, ladies and gents. Today, we are joined by Courtney Carver. She is an expert in how you can be more with less. And I know what you're thinking. Is this an episode on minimalism? But it is actually an episode on so much more. I really enjoyed this episode because we went wide on how you can simplify various different aspects of your life, why you might want to, and how to get started. This was really relevant for me in what I'm currently going through, trying to simplify my life, simplify my business, and just optimize for a new variable, which is happiness and health, as opposed to more and achievements. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. I certainly did. And if you do, let us know. Send us a little tweet or hit us up on the Instagram machine. And without any further ado, please enjoy this episode with Courtney Carver. Courtney Carver, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I am very excited to talk to you today because I've recently experienced some of the magic of what you're going to be sharing with our audience. And I got to say, it's really, really good stuff. And just, I think something that I can really get behind as a thing that'll just make all our lives better. But before we get into exactly what it is and your expertise and specialty, tell me a little bit about your journey, your superhero origin story, if you will, and how life brought you down this path to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I think who knows how far it really goes back, but I typically start the story in 2006 when, after decades of trying to live life the way I thought I was supposed to, in working too hard, spending too much, being in way too much debt, always chasing more, always proving myself, always, just never feeling like I had enough. I was always overextended. So never enough money, never enough of the right stuff, never enough energy, never enough time. I was always running late. But looking around me, it seemed like everybody else was sort of running that same race. So I thought, okay, this is adulting. This is how we're going to roll. But that all kind of came to a screeching halt in 2006 after months of debilitating fatigue and vertigo, tingling in my hands, numbness in my face, and countless tests and visits to different specialists and doctors. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And ironically, it's while I was training for the MS 150, which is a cycling event to raise funds for MS research.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was just so, not only was the diagnosis shocking, but to have that happen while I was doing that work was just really crushing. I mean, it never occurred to me that could happen to me. They always say the things that happen aren't the things you're worried about. I definitely wasn't worried about that. But it gave me, after, of course, a couple of weeks of being super freaked out and trying to figure out what this meant, I immediately took a step back and thought, how did I get here? Where am I going? How am I going to live well with this disease? Is that even possible?
Is it? I mean, I'm not up to date on the current scientific research with MS, and what does that look like for you, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, well, yes, it is. That's the good news. MS, multiple sclerosis, looks really different for everyone. There's different forms of the disease. I think the only thing we all have in common is that as of right now, there's no cure. There are treatments, but the way that it manifests in different people looks different. So it could be that people are having relapses every so often that include anything from the symptoms that I mentioned, like fatigue and vertigo, or some tingling or numbness. It could include cognitive decline. It could include vision impairment. It could include, loss of feeling in your limbs. It really runs the gamut in terms of symptoms. But a lot of people do really well with MS. And when I was diagnosed, there weren't as many treatments as there are available now, nor were there the recommendations of eating better, lifestyle changes, things that you can do to live well with the disease. And so I was kind of on the hunt for what that looked like. And all the research that I did kind of pointed to stress, eliminate stress, reduce stress. And that was my goal. It was never to simplify my life. I didn't know I was going to take that path. I just knew that one thing at a time, I was going to reduce and eliminate as much stress as possible in my life. And today it's now 2020, and I haven't had a relapse since 2007.
Good for you. Congratulations. That's
Thank
wonderful
you.
to hear. And I think now is a really great time. We're recording this in April of 2020. It's a great time to talk about stress, and specifically the kind of stress that I hope where this conversation goes, because so many people are at home right now. They are so stressed. Tell me how you became aware from this state of not enough of anything. I love how you articulated it. Not enough time, not enough energy, not enough stuff. How did you get from there to being a thought leader on the topic of minimalism and having less deliberately?
Well, from experience, first and foremost, and then also from major mind shifting over the course of the changes that I made. So again, like I said, I didn't even know what minimalism was. I didn't care about simplifying my life. All I thought was, what is something that is stressful in my life that I can change right now? Just one thing. And I kind of went through this process of one thing at a time over the course of many years. So looked at diet, looked at debt, looked at the clutter in my home, looked at how I was spending my time, looked at the work I was doing, the home I owned and all the crap that was in it. And again, very slowly started removing things from all these different categories. And I think it was around the time that we started paying off tens of thousands of dollars of debt that I realized that the common thread in the changes that I was making was simplicity. And that's when I started to get interested in minimalism as a lifestyle. And maybe this was more than just decluttering my kitchen. Maybe removing these things forever would remove even more stress from my life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So tell me about the journey and that process. I mean, were there books? Were there certifications? How does one go about starting with minimalism? Because our society, it's so many decades for most of us of programming that more is better. And it's not, you don't just flip a switch, I imagine, and one day decide. So did you just start by, along the way, did you encounter Marie Kondo, other thought leaders? Did you just start making up the rules for yourself? Tell me a little bit about your transformation.
Yeah, in the beginning, it really started with making up the rules for myself. And much of that is the same now, although there's plenty of information out there that's been beneficial to me. But this became so much more than letting go of my stuff. It was an experiment in trusting myself. That was the biggest thing. So up until this point, I always just kind of did what I was supposed to do, what I should do, what I thought other people wanted me to do. Boy, did I want to make everybody in my life happy. But I didn't realize I was doing that at the risk of my own health and well-being and happiness. So I remember in the very beginning of this, like in that summer of 2006, going to a meeting, like a support group meeting for newly diagnosed MS patients. And I had done a lot of research on the internet and found all these like possible fixes, like take this miracle cure and you'll be better. And I remember having a list of them because in the very beginning, you're so desperate to find something that might work. And I asked the nurse practitioner what they thought of it. And there was someone else in the room, and he asked me a question back, and he said, "What do you believe?" And him asking me that question really changed the trajectory of my journey completely, because in that moment, I went from begging for advice to asking myself, what do I believe? What do I believe is best for me? And that's how I began to make every single decision from that point forward. And so when I was changing my diet, it wasn't a doctor recommended diet change. And it's nothing that I would recommend for anyone else, because I don't know your body. I don't know what's best for you. But based on the research that I did, it looked like removing most animal products, certainly all animal meat, to remove inflammation from inside my body. That resonated with me. Did I do a degree in nutrition to figure that out? No, I didn't. I just trusted myself. And I thought, if I'm wrong, then I'll try something else. It worked for me. It worked for my body.
I can tell. Now, I want to ask, I think there's someone out there in the audience, you know, I'm a convert, right? Because I've realized that getting rid of a lot of stuff, I'm actually going right now, and I haven't talked to my audience about this. So I'll tell you first, Courtney. You're the first person to know outside my team. Is I'm going through this exact same thing with my business, where I'm realizing I've built maybe a bigger business than I wanted, that I was happier when it was me and a bunch of, a few really cool people putting out products for people that they love, and no red tape, no bureaucracy, no, 3-year plan and vision. And so I'm simplifying. And don't worry, folks, I'm still going to be around, but I'm simplifying and cutting out the things that I don't enjoy in the business. And so I'm a convert around this, like, simplify your life, improve your life, get rid of stuff, whether it's, at home, whether it's burdens, whether it's whatever. I'd love to hear you talk from your perspective and your experience for someone who doesn't understand, like, what's the big deal with simplifying and minimalism and, getting rid of all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, let me first be clear that I really don't care what you call it. I don't think you have to label yourself a minimalist or aspire to live with the least amount of stuff. I think that's probably just as damaging as trying to live with the most amount of stuff.
Right.
Instead, just think about what the right amount of stuff is for you, or what things really add value to your life. What things do you own versus what things own you? And this is a great time to do that. More of us are home right now. We're starting to really notice our surroundings, and you can see, like, oh yeah, I use my juicer every single day. That's a great thing to own. But I also have this rice cooker, and I don't eat rice. So why do I have this rice cooker? Went through a phase a couple of years ago, ate all the rice cooker served its purpose. Now I never use it. Let it go. But back to your question, the big deal about this might not be about each individual thing. It's more about creating an environment that you want to thrive in. And I think we dismiss the weight that excessive clutter and even just stuff that doesn't serve us being around has, that impact that it has on our mental state.
Yes.
I know, especially now where we're cleaning more than ever before, I just don't want to move things around to clean my countertops. So I'm even now, many, many, many years into this, giving things even extra thought. Like, okay, is this really necessary? And for the most part, I found a pretty good place for myself, but it doesn't look like this isn't a prescriptive, like, here are exactly the things that you should own in your life. But I think the more intentional we are about what we include in our life, the more intentional we'll be about how we live our lives.
Yes. And I think that's a really great point. And I went to recently a lecture on KonMari method. And someone asked, is this minimalism that you're talking about? And they said it's not. And I don't know where you stand on Marie Kondo and all her stuff, but what I liked about the way this person answered, this kind of certified practitioner, was it's not about minimalism. It's not about labels. It's about getting rid of stuff that you don't need, whatever that means for you. A family of 5 with young children has different needs than myself and my wife. And from my experience, it's not just about having extra space in the house. It really is about when you get to the point where everything you own is something that you like, something that you love, and there's nothing blocking between you and the things that you love, you have a happier experience, whether that's on your computer or it's in your closet or it's in your kitchen cabinets or it's in your phone book, by the way, of relationships that are not serving you. Where do you fall on the energetic aspect of this? Because I know some people, Marie Kondo being one, really believe, there's an energy to the things in your home. And if you're surrounded by things that you don't really even like, that's bad energy. Do you subscribe to the kind of spiritual side of all of this?
I mean, I'm open to that for sure. And to spiritual things in other ways. But for the most part, I think our stuff just drains us emotionally. So I think the things that we own carry a lot of emotion. And that could be energy, right? Emotional energy, whatever you want to call it. But I think, for instance, in the closet, if you have a closet stuffed full of a decade's worth of wardrobe, you almost definitely have clothes in there that don't fit you. That makes you feel bad. You have clothes in there with tags still hanging on. That makes you feel bad. You have clothes that you bought because they were on sale and then you never worn them. That doesn't feel good. So I think removing, and here's the thing, is you're gravitating towards your favorite items anyway. Why not just give yourself permission to only choose from your favorite things? And that could go in the closet, in your refrigerator, anywhere else. And I don't think it's about having a ton of amazing, lovely things either, or things that you love, or worshiping your things by any means. But maybe you're clearing space for something completely different. Like you want to start your own business, or you want to be more focused, or you want to be able to pay better attention to your loved ones. Eliminate those distractions, get them out of the way. This isn't about like replacing the so-so things with perfect things. It's about getting rid of the things that you don't care about, don't need, don't want, in an effort to make room for more of the really good stuff. So I always like to think like, I didn't get rid of my clutter, the stress, the busyness to have a simple life. I did it to have a life, like my life, the life that I want, and the life that I want to continue to be intentional about and create.
All right, let's take a quick pause and thank this episode's sponsor, BlueBlock's blue light blocking glasses, the only blue light blocking company in the world that create evidence-backed lenses for filtering blue and green light. Their Australian lab-built lens technology is fitted into the most fashionable frames, and they can even make prescription and reading glasses in their optics lab. So whether you want to wear their Sleep Plus glasses that block 100% of blue and green light, their Summer Glow mood booster glasses, or even blue light computer glasses that don't have a yellow tint, BlueBlocks has you covered. Now, I like to wear the Sleep Plus glasses 2 to 3 hours before bed, and they really, really help your sleep. I also like to wear the daytime ones for reducing digital eye strain, headaches, and lowering stress. Now, BlueBlocks has free and fast worldwide shipping, and if you use code SUPERHUMAN at checkout, you can get 15% off any pair that you want. Just go to blueblocks.com, that's BLUBLOX.com, and enter code SUPERHUMAN to save 15%. All right, let's get back to the episode. Where are some steps that people can begin? I mean, how do we start this journey? A lot of people right now are at home. Hopefully by the time this episode airs, people will be out and about, but we'll have the experience of being stuck in a home that maybe had more stuff than they wanted, or in a life that maybe had some things that they don't want. Where do you even start?
So there's two things that I really recommend, and I'm not going to give you decluttering tips because I know everybody can Google how to declutter. And actually, totally. I know everybody already knows, like, you take your stuff, you put it in a box, and you take the box out of your house. However, there are two things that will make this a more sustainable change, and any change you make. And you've probably talked about some of this before, but I really had to change the way I changed to make any of this work. And the first thing that I had to do is make big change small. So instead of waking up and thinking, I'm going to declutter my life, my entire house, the garage and my car and my kitchen and my closet, instead I'm thinking, today I'm going to declutter my junk drawer. And then when that little space is clean and clear and I'm happy with my accomplishment, I'm going to use that momentum and confidence that I created to tackle another space. And then I'm just going to keep doing that for as long as it takes. And there's no deadline on this. So I'm just going to keep using that momentum to move on to the next thing. And remember and remind myself that big change is the result of hundreds of tiny steps. And so I'm just going to keep taking the tiny steps. And then the other thing is that I need a really good reason to change. I'm not going to declutter so that I can have clean countertops. That's nice, but it's not life-changing. It's not going to put you into a decade's worth of change and commitment or longer. Mm-hmm. But if I believe that letting go of my stuff is going to allow me to better connect with the people I love, or improve my health, or give me a good night of sleep, yes, or allow me to travel more, whatever your thing is, write that down. And then when things feel tough, because they will at some point. I mean, it took us 3 years to pay off all of our debt. And there were times where we were like, oh my gosh, is this ever going to be done? And we'd remember why we were doing it. And that would keep us going.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the other areas in your life that I'm going to use the term decluttered, but give people some ideas of all the areas of their life they can simplify?
Oh, wow. I think I could say every single area. And I thought I would be done in a couple of years. And here I am 14 years later, still finding things to simplify in my life. So my diet, my money, and it's not just the getting rid of the debt, but I changed my whole relationship with money. Same with stuff and shopping, really just changed the way I thought about it by doing the work. And it wasn't just flipping a switch and oh, I don't want to go shopping anymore, or I don't feel like I need new things anymore. It was a longer process of really figuring out why I was shopping, which was to ease pain of boredom, of disappointment, of sadness, of whatever, and realize that there are better ways to treat that pain and Some of it doesn't even need to be treated, but I just didn't want to feel it. So I would shop it away. I think it's one of the ways that we like to numb out, whether that be food, shopping, booze. Anyway, going off on a tangent here. All right. So shopping, clutter, debt, my work. I worked in advertising sales, and my career for close to 20 years was in sales and marketing, and took a couple of years and shifted to writing and talking to people about simplifying their life. I mean, that was a night and day, both lifestyle and career move for me. But that came from simplifying my work while I was working that job and learning everything I needed to learn to make the transition in a way that I wouldn't, I guess that I would be able to sustain a new business. And all through these changes, I'm focusing on my health. So if I notice that I'm creating more stress in my business or in my life through the changes I'm making, I'm backing up and trying something different. Because if the whole purpose is to reduce stress, why would I do anything that would increase it?
Yeah.
We downsized from 2,000 square feet, garage, attic, storage shed in the backyard, to an apartment less than half the size. That was a really major shift, and no storage of any kind. So everything that was in that house went eventually by the time we moved. Or I think, of course, I don't have a really sure way to measure this, but I would estimate that we have 90% less stuff than we did when we lived in our home. And then the shifts and changes that I've made really moved from the clutter and the calendar and to more of like an inner, the way I think about things. So not believing everything I think. That was a big shift for me, because I thought everything I thought was true. As it turns out, that's not the case. But that helped me trust myself even more when I became willing to question what I believed and what I thought. And then last year, 2019, and again, I kind of thought I was done with the big changes. But in 2019, I did two things. I eliminated one thing and I added one thing. The thing that I eliminated was alcohol.
Good for you. I did the same thing years ago.
Did you?
Oh,
yeah.
5 years
What a
now.
difference. What a difference.
Night and day. Night and day.
Night and day. I would agree. And I mean, even though I wasn't at a place in my life where I was partying all the time, I loved to have wine with dinner. I loved to drink on the weekends. I loved to travel and drink. And I remember I stopped drinking in January 2019. I didn't plan on stopping for good. I never thought that would happen. I was planning on stopping for a month or so because I went on a trip, had too much to drink, got a bad hangover, and thought, I need a break. But then after the 30 days, I thought, I feel really good. I might just keep going. And I had a trip coming up to Amsterdam and Paris, and I thought, I'll stop until I get to Amsterdam and Paris, because I'm not going to be in Paris and not drink champagne. That doesn't make any sense. But by the time I got to my trip, I didn't want to drink at all. And I've never gone back and never have missed it. So the way that that's improved my life is beyond. And then the thing that I added was Transcendental Meditation.
Oh, yeah. Same.
Wow, we have a lot in common.
Yeah,
so I had
absolutely
meditated for years, really since pretty close to after I was diagnosed. But I would do things like Headspace, which I think is great. And I still dip into that if I wake up in the night and need a sleep story or something like that. But I always liked guided meditation because just sitting quietly, like my mind I thought it was too distracted. But since I started Transcendental Meditation, or TM, last March, so March 2019, now I meditate twice a day for 20 minutes, quietly. And it's like, it's not something you can really explain, or at least I can't. It's different than any other meditation I've ever done. It's easy. It's really added a lot of value to my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You said a lot of really interesting things there. One that stood out to me, and as I mentioned, I mean, the business piece, I've been guilty for years of building more complexity than I should. The money piece is really interesting because I think a lot of us, at least I've always tried to heed the wisdom of diversify, vary up your income streams, never put all your eggs into one basket. And in doing so, I mean, I recently applied for another mortgage. We want to buy a bigger house, and now you got me questioning that as well. But we applied for a mortgage, and it was like 50 reams of paper to be like, oh, well, I also have this little investment in this thing here, and I just put some money into this thing, and then there's the this. It's like 500 different income sources. Like, heaven forbid if I ever get hit by a bus, like, I hope my wife can figure it all out. And it adds a lot of stress. It adds, it affords a wonderful lifestyle and everything, but that wonderful lifestyle becomes less and less necessary if your goal is less. So
definitely. And again, I mean, just like clutter, it's different for everyone. I know one of the things we do is we have what I call a simplicity summit. We used to do it every month when we were really in it, simplifying, and now we probably do it twice a year. But it's just a time where we review everything having to do, starting with money, where we are, what our expenses are, where we're investing. So my husband and I were both on the same page with how everything is, and then having conversations about what's important to us. What direction do we want to go? Do we want to make any changes? Do we want to live somewhere else? All the big questions that cross our minds all the time, but you don't want to have that conversation when somebody is on their way to work or when you're out for a hike. I think there needs to be an appropriate, not that you can't bring it up, but if you really want to dig into numbers and get some things going, I think having like a meeting of the mind, so to speak, then you can really make a lot of progress and talk about things that might feel uncomfortable with each other. Totally.
Now, I want to ask, because your website is called BeMoreWithLess.com. Make sure to check that out, folks. BeMoreWithLess.com. One thing that I think is interesting, and I'll give a personal example, not because I'm so interesting, but because it'll allow us to forward the conversation. I looked at my wife the other day and I said, part of the difficulty and part of why I've built stuff in this way is wanting to kind of be more, achieve more, do more, prove to, maybe not to others, but to myself that I've exceeded my previous limitations. Do you have any suggestions? Because I feel like a lot of the reason people want more, whether it's more money, it could be more friends, all of the reasons and things that we want more of, I think a lot of times it comes down to feeling like we are more. And how do we work through that? Because everything in our being, at least the way that we're conditioned socially, tells us that is true, and yet it is not true. I think we know it's not true. And yet you still have to make that mindset adjustment. Any thoughts, tips, journaling exercises for folks who do say, you know what, Courtney, I do associate my bank balance or the number of cars in my garage with my worth, and I want to change that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I understand that because I did it for a long time, whether it was my hitting sales goals or what I owned or the way where
downloads.
There's always something to measure, right? But when I think about be more with less, when I say be more, what I really mean is be more you or be more me. So be more true to yourself. I mean, that's how you learn to trust yourself. Mm-hmm. Be more sincere. Be more compassionate. Be okay just being and knowing that, like, right where you're sitting right now, no matter what's happening outside of you, that's your worth. Like, this is you. That's all that matters in terms of measurement. There's nothing on the outside that is going to appropriately measure what's on the inside. But we're so uncomfortable with ourselves that we put all of our energy into ways that we can measure. Like, see, look, I got all these things on my to-do list done. I'm amazing. Or I got on the scale today and I lost 2 pounds. I'm so awesome. The problem with that is that there are an equal amount of days when we do that measurement thing and we come up short. And then we don't feel good. And then we lack confidence. And then we start to doubt ourselves. And it's this vicious circle. So look at the ways you measure and see if you can stop doing that. Even if it's an experiment or a challenge, like for 30 days, I'm not going to weigh myself, or I'm not going to make a to-do list, or I'm going to only work from one to-do list for a whole month. So there's no, like, you must get all of these things done by the end of the day or you're a failure. And the same goes for money. Like, money is a tool. It's not a representation of anything else, because a lot of the reason that you probably have the money that you do is because of the privilege you have and the situation that you're in. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you work hard as well. And I'm not just talking to you. I'm talking to anyone who might be resonating with this, because I have told myself the same thing. I was really good at what I did. I think I'm good at what I do now. I don't mind making money, but I know it's not a reflection of who I am, because that means that someone else who isn't making the same amount of money, they're less than I am. That makes no sense.
Right.
Like, when I start to frame it like that, it's nonsense what we'll do to ourselves to feel secure and to avoid being ourselves. So just focus on being more you.
Mm-hmm. I do want to ask, you raised something, there will always be something to measure. And one thing I've been playing with, I want to get your honest feedback here. You may think this is a bad idea, in which case I'm the host of the podcast, so I get to ask you, which is really nice. Changing the metrics, right? In our business, we're always thinking about, like, what do we actually want to measure, right? Do we want to measure dollars, or do we want to measure students impacted, or do we want to measure? And thinking in my life, if you are always going, even informally, right? It's not like I have a spreadsheet, but even informally, if you are always going to measure something, then what about changing the things that you measure? For example, instead of how much money is my business making, or how many square feet does my house have, you measure how many hours this week did I have to spend with my family, or how many days did I take off this year to do things that I love? And that's something I've been playing with. It is still measuring, right? But it's measuring things that I think are going to make me happier and optimizing for them.
Yeah. And I like that. I think definitely less measuring is good, but I like to think, because for me, like, that to-do list was a really big source of struggle in terms of measuring. And so I say to myself now, I'll measure less by what's on my list and more about what's on my heart. And you're really saying the same exact thing within your business or within your life, like measuring the things that are heart things and not things that you can write down on paper, for instance, or things that have numbers and dollar signs. Have all those things, but when it really comes to measuring your life, and I'm certain at the end of your life, you're not going to be like, oh my God, remember that Wednesday where I didn't get anything done and I lost all that money in the stock market or whatever. It's just not going to matter. And so if it doesn't matter then, why does it matter right now? That's what is happening, I think, for a lot of us in April 2020, is we're realizing that so much of what we thought mattered does not. That's good news, because it's giving us an opportunity to ask the question, what matters to me? And then acting from there.
Right. Now, I know we've pretty much come up on time here, Courtney. I do want to ask, any other things that you do? We mentioned diet. We mentioned a lot of mindset, not believing everything that you think. Any other things that you do to optimize your performance at a higher level?
Yeah, a lot of things. I work out almost every day. I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. I also don't get stressed out about food anymore in terms of, like, I'll have a treat or a snack or make dessert and just have zero stress the way that I used to around things like that, because it just doesn't make any sense to me to be 100% one way or another. And the other thing I do that has really helped me a lot is that I dress with 33 items or less every 3 months, including clothes, shoes, jewelry, and accessories. It's part of Project 333, a fashion challenge I created in 2010 that's now a book. And it's something that I thought I would only do for 3 months. And here I am 10 years later, still doing it because it relieves so much stress and makes my life much easier. Yeah.
So cool. So cool. So 33 items, including everything, accessories, shoes, socks. That is very impressive.
Socks don't count.
Socks don't count.
A couple things don't count. So you don't count underwear, loungewear, or workout clothes, but your workout clothes have to be working out.
Got it. Okay, I love that. I interviewed on the show someone who ran the website 64things.com, and he owned a total, including computer, iPhone, total of 64 things. But I think most of those were clothes. Really, really cool. Now, Courtney, where can people reach out, learn more about you, get in touch? Is there anything they should particularly check out on your website?
No, I think the best place for us to connect is through the site, BeMoreWithLess.com, or on Instagram, where I am at BeMoreWithLess.
Fantastic. Love it. And before I let you go, Courtney, one last question I always ask, which is, if people take away one really big message from this episode and they carry that message with them for the rest of their lives, what would you hope for that to be? Trust
yourself. You know you better than anyone else. And so trust that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Courtney, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, learning from you, and laughing with you. And I hope we do stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit superhuman.blog. While you're at it, please take a moment to share this episode with a friend and leave us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next week.